Welcome to the American Academy of Grief Counseling's Videogram on grief on the brain. And in this short video, we're going to look at how the human brain experiences the emotional trauma and loss of losing someone, a loved one in particular, to death itself. So losing someone and the brain's response is quite natural because the loss itself and the grief associated with that rattles the entire human essence. Our entire life itself is rattled, altered, and changed. So losing someone naturally drives the body from an evolutionary standpoint to find that person. But when someone dies, that adjustment takes time. It takes time to understand that that person can never be found again. And in the meantime, within the brain itself, neural pathways are being created with this new dynamic within the brain to help the individual adjust to the new situation, the post situation of the individual no longer being present in one's life. Now, the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, and in the limbic center reacts to the loss. It's very emotional. Because it's so emotionally charged, it puts a greater imprint upon one's memory. Fragmented emotional memories that are found in the hippocampus take time to process and find long-term settlement in the frontal cortex. So one is hence very emotional in the early stages of grief and very easily distracted because of the process and the new neural pathways that are being formed within the brain itself. And during so, because it's such a high stressful situation, the fight or flight response of stress becomes a factor. And with that, the hypothalamus activates what we call the pituitary gland, which is the master gland, which then responds to the adrenal glands, which release various hormones, including cortisol, which increases heart rate, increases blood pressure, and prepares the body for a demanding situation. And that is the whole phenomenon, what we call the fight or flight response. And in grief, we are going through a high stressful situation. So our body in turn is also going to respond. During this time, the emotional center of the brain within the amygdala dictates moods over the various intellectual processes that are usually in charge. One then has to perform grief work in itself, to work through the loss itself, to help rebalance the brain and create new neural pathways that correlate the loss in a new way in the post-loss world. So grief work helps heal the brain. It helps create new neural pathways as the person begins to adjust to the loss, and also helps the person find new meanings associated with the death of the loved one. So with new neural pathways come new ideas. The new initial mourning then, and these new neural pathways are going to hold immense pain. And the thoughts of the loss, the memories of the loss are going to be extreme and oscillate frequently. In particular, in PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, fragmented and charged memories can be trapped in the short-term memory center and unable to be processed. Other than that, others who experience difficult deaths of loved ones may experience what we refer to as prolonged grief, or even die of what they refer to as a broken heart. And that goes back to the fight or flight syndrome reaction of the body, because it is actually increasing blood pressure and also heart rate. Now, once new neural pathways are able to translate the loss in a healthy and adjusted way, the brain begins to become rewired and becomes to understand the new meaning of the loss in the person's life. And this is what we refer to in grief counseling as meaning reconstruction. And meaning reconstruction helps create a new narrative about the loss from an intellectual point of view. And it helps individuals understand how the loss finds a place in the person's life. It finds purpose, and it connects the past present, and future of the person's life narrative together and binds it together. And it helps the individual then adjust, not necessarily not feel pain anymore, but to adjust to the loss and to minimize the pain at a much lower a level. And this is what we refer to as grief healing. Grief healing is adjustment. It means new neural pathways have been created. These neural pathways don't magically make the loss vanish, but it helps the person understand the loss from a more intellectual standpoint, not just an emotional, painful standpoint. So the memories in the long-term storage now have been properly located and stored, but upon retrieval of these memories, one can experience intense pain still at the very moment due to the intensity of the emotion associated with the memory. So anything with a special scent, sound, place, or thing can activate the actual memory. Now, this doesn't mean that one is regressing in their healing. It just means that the brain is remembering a painful moment. So as one continues, one can also expect oscillation of extreme emotional states to become less, but this will in turn lead to a more evenly emotional standpoint from an individual from day to day. Again, these memories can be reactivated, but the intensity of the first 3 to 6 months, the oscillation will become less and less extreme due to the new neural pathways. And why would we not want it any other way? If we have deep love for someone and we lose that someone, we want these memories to stay with us, no matter how painful they might be. So these new neural pathways will help us understand the loss, but due to the emotional charge of the loss itself, the memory will always be with us. One way to strengthen these neural pathways in a healthy fashion is to memorialize the loss and also to work with journaling, writing through one's emotions. And all of this, again, helps with meaning reconstruction. And it helps one be able to exist apart from the loved one, but still at least function. And of course, this type of grief healing is something that takes time. It's not magic. It's not fast, but over time, the mind and the soul heal from this intense wound. And it's able again to function at an intellectual level without forgetting the loss itself or the love that was so intense that was once shared. We are the American Academy of Grief Counseling. Below is our link, as well as our number at 330-652-7776. And our email is info@aihcp.org. I hope this video helps explain a little bit about how the brain and the body responds to loss, and how, as grieving individuals, we can better incorporate the loss into our life and help create new neural pathways to better meaning reconstruct the loss into our past, our present, and our future. I'd like to thank you for listening and have a good day.